All right, Alex, let's go ahead and get started with your run video analysis. Some of the points I'm going to really kind of focus on has to do with weakness that I'm noticing in your hips and your glutes. So one of the things that we can look at as we slow it down is whenever you land, that foot that you land on, the glute kind of drops a little bit and you're rotating your hips. You can kind of see with this right glute dropping, you can see your foot should be straight up and down, but it's tilted a little bit and you're having to overcompensate by rotating your hips. So again, this goes back to hip mobilization and stabilization as well as glute stabilization as well. So really, Alex, the goal is that when you land, we want your glutes to be firing and your hips to be stable and providing that structure for you mechanically. So what I'm going to do is as we're slowing it down, I want to show you a little something about this over rotating of the hips and kind of what it causes. And you can see as your right foot comes down, your left glute kind of drops. Your toes are pointing out to the right. And your knee from the knee down kind of comes in, so you can see that kind of collapse. And so rather it being in a straight line, you kind of collapse in because you're rotating your hips. So I hope that kind of makes sense there. So now what we're going to do, Alex, is we're going to move to a side view, and I just want to kind of point out what I'm kind of noticing with your stride, because this is really important, especially when we're talking about speed. So what I'm going to do is just point out your hip inflection point and your knee inflection point as we slow it down. You can see your trailing leg and your lead leg. Those two lines should be parallel, okay? And you can kind of see that you're not really extending your knee. You can see the arrow. The way you get in parallel is to extend your knee, like this picture of Shalane Flanagan. So you can see how the two lines are parallel. Why? Because she's getting her knee inflection. She's really getting her knee up there. She's able to extend her hips. So with proper exercises where you're stretching and working on the mobility of your hip, but also your hip flexor, you'll be able to really drive forward and get the inflection that you really need. It's really what we're looking for here. So really what we're trying to do, Alex, is just make you as symmetrical as can be. And this is where the stabilization exercises like the fire hydrants and the bridge and the crab walks side to side, all these lateral movements, and even stretching your hip flexors. You can see, we want you to have good extension in your run. So let's go ahead and look at you from the forward angle. And again, going back to being symmetrical as we slow it down, you can see you're kind of crossing over. Again, as your glute drops and your hips rotate, you're going to kind of cross in. You can see as I draw the line, instead of being straight up and down, it's kind of off to the angle because your hips are kind of overcompensating for the weak glutes and glute medial and kind of coming over. So again, we want to make the most of your running, and you can imagine in a 10-mile run, you're going to pound the pavement 10,000 times. So these little micro adjustments, if they're not corrected, can really add up to some making your body just really irritated. So all in all, good job.